After a most frustrating month of portage around the Great Falls of the Missouri, the Corps finally set off again on July 15, 1805, and headed upstream once more. The party moved along well for 4 days and then encountered an awe-inspiring place. Lewis wrote, "We entered much the most remarkable cliffs that we have yet seen. These cliffs rise from the water's edge on either side perpendicularly to the height of 1,200 feet. The towering and projecting rocks in many places seem ready to tumble on us. From the singular appearance of this place, I called it the Gates of the Rocky Mountains." By the end of July, the Corps encountered the junction of 3 rivers that joined to make up the Missouri, a place they named Three Forks. Sacagawea informed them that this was indeed the very site where her people were encamped 5 years earlier when she was kidnapped by a raiding party of the Hidatsus. As they camped here, the captains decided that the southwestmost fork was the largest and therefore was the real source of the Missouri. So they named this fork the Jefferson, and this would be their continuing route upstream. The streams were getting narrower and narrower as the Corps moved upstream. Clearly, they would not be able to move their canoes much further. The Corps desperately needed to find horses upon which to load their supplies in order to continue moving up and over the mountains. And they knew that the Shoshone tribe would be their only possible source of horses. They now had to find the Shoshones, but had seen no sign of them. The captains were getting very worried. Lewis and a small party set out alone to try to find the Continental Divide and the Shoshones. By August 12th, the streams coming downhill had dwindled to nothing, and Lewis ascended the last rise. He came to the pass dividing the Atlantic from the Pacific watershed, a place now called Lemhi Pass. His emotions were running high as he climbed this last rise. He had been working his way upstream and uphill for over a year and was now finally getting to the top. This pass was very important in another way. It was the end of U.S. territory, since the recent Louisiana Purchase only included land that drained into the Mississippi River, and this was the end of that drainage. The Corps had been traveling in U.S. territory until now, but would emerge into territory not yet owned by any nation. But as elated as Lewis must have been to reach this milestone, he was crestfallen when he looked ahead and saw mountain range after mountain range yet to be crossed. He had hoped for a clear downward trek to the Columbia, and had written even that he expected to drink from it tonight. Obviously, the Corps would have much more to do to get across these rugged mountains. They must have horses or die in these high mountains as the snows set in. As Lewis hiked on across the divide, he very soon encountered a strong westbound stream, absolute confirmation that he had crossed the Continental Divide. He hiked on down into a beautiful valley. Suddenly, he spotted a small party of Indians. They quickly fled, except for some women and a man. Lewis approached them with signs of peace. The Shoshone had never seen a white man before. They were frightened, thinking they were going to be killed or captured, but Lewis gave them gifts and tried to reassure them. They were then released to tell their main party and to bring them forward. Shortly, a war party of 60 warriors appeared, and Lewis began to try to talk with them. He gave their chief, Camowaite, gifts, and both parties sat down to a linguistically difficult but peaceful discussion. At this site, Lewis convinced Camowaite to take 30 horses and some warriors and accompany him back up to the main party across the divide. Camowaite agreed, and the entire party set back across the divide to find the rest of the Corps. Lewis found Clark and the rest of the Corps, and they all began to negotiate seriously with the Shoshone for horses. Sacagawea was translating this discussion for both sides when a most amazing coincidence occurred. She suddenly recognized that the chief, Camowaite, was actually her brother, whom she had not seen for 5 years. The reunion was exuberant, and the success of the horse trading was assured. The Shoshone not only gave the Corps the horses they needed, but offered the services of one of their members, Old Toby, to guide them over the remaining mountains. The Corps loaded up all their supplies on the newly traded horses and began a long trek up and over the Lemhi Pass. They then turned northward to arrive at the Bitterroot Mountains, their last tough barrier, but one that would test them severely. Old Toby brought them to an ancient Indian campground at the confluence of several trails, a site that the party called Traveler's Rest. Here the group rested and repaired their equipment, for it promised to be a most difficult mountain passage, the trip up over the Lolo Trail.